Hi, Dr. Dirk. This is John Bias. Today, I'm here to talk to you about the opioid epidemic in our country. See, there's a silent killer out there, and not a lot of people know about it. It's not brought up in the news. It's not publicized in social media. Not a lot of light put on the subject. But nonetheless, more and more people every day are dying from opiate overdoses. So there's a point at which we need to start doing something and shedding light on this subject. I want to explain to you why I chose this topic, why it's so important to me. In 2005, I was involved in an automobile accident. I was taking my daughter to her recital at school, and somebody came through a stop sign, blew right through it, and T-boned my car. Now, thankfully, my daughter was okay, but I was left with a shattered left kneecap, and it was a very, very painful injury. So as I'm taken to the hospital and they start to look at the damage in my knees, they start giving me pain medication. Innocent enough, right? Everybody who gets hurt or has a wisdom tooth pulled is usually going to get a pain pill from their dentist or their doctor. But the problem with me was it took 2 years for them to reconstruct my knee. I went through several surgeries to get to that point, all of which I'm taking more and more and more pain pills every single day, and my body's starting to build up a tolerance. By the time my surgery was done, the amount of pills that I was taking was so overwhelmingly large that the doctors had to up my narcotic level to a stronger dose so they could back off how much they were giving to me. But through the 4 years it took for rehab, I became tolerant to those as well. By the time that my doctor signed off on my knee and shooed me out the door, I had a huge chemical dependency. At that point, I had no more prescriptions. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had 3 choices that I could make, though. One, I could go out and I could buy illegal prescriptions on the street and possibly go to prison if caught. Number 2, I could go out and I could buy some heroin. It's a lot cheaper and easier to get a hold of, but you don't know how clean it is, and you hear about people dying all the time from contaminated heroin and needles in their arms, so that didn't sound too appealing to me as well. So the third option I had was to go to detox, go through the withdrawal process, and just completely get off of it, which is what I chose to do. But I'll tell you, it was a very painful, long, drawn-out process that I don't wish on anybody. I would much rather educate people so they could get off of it or be aware of it before they even get wrapped up into it. At one point, my only other option was to start taking fentanyl because I had built up such an immune system and tolerance to all of the other pain pills. Let me just give you a statistic about fentanyl. The amount that could sit on the top of a sharpened sewing pin could kill a human being. That speck is so strong on the top of a needle that it would kill a human being. This is what they're going to. We've got to educate people about this topic. My story is not as uncommon as you would think. See, for many years, the pharmaceutical companies have been misleading doctors and the public to the dangers of the chemical dependency to their products. As a result of this misinformation, doctors thought they were truly providing managed pain care to their patients with little to no risk. However, this was not the case. The truth of the matter was the chemical dependency on these pills was so astronomical that if anybody knew about them, the FDA would not have approved them, doctors wouldn't have wrote scripts for them, and people wouldn't have taken them. So it was kept very quiet. Now, in the middle of this epidemic, there's some major areas that we need to look at, such as how did we get here, what's being done about it, what are the wider ranging effects of this epidemic, and how are we going to deal with all those people out there that were addicted? By the way, 1 in 20 Americans are either A, addicted to opiates, or someone in their close family or circle of friends is addicted. So this is something that's touching just about everybody in America through some form. Since 1999, there have been over 183,000 people that have died from opiate overdoses. Now, some statistics put that number a little higher, based on the fact that not every single person that ended up in a morgue had an autopsy, and therefore the number could even be higher. But we'll just use that number for now. In 2015, opiate deaths passed up automobile accidents and gunshot wounds as the #1 reason for accidental death in our country. That's amazing, in just such a short amount of time. In 2012, the amount of prescriptions for opiates that were issued in our country, 259 million. That's 259 with 6 zeros. Amount of prescriptions that were issued to Americans. To put that into perspective, that would be 1 bottle of opiates for every adult person in America. That's overwhelming if you think about it. And recently, in a survey of people that were in a detox program, 94% of them that were asked, now that you're in recovery and in detox and you're going through what you're going through, would you have gone out and done anything other than come into rehab? 94% of them said that they would have rather gone out and got heroin than have to go through what they're going through to get clean. It's a very painful process. So what are we going to do about it? What's next? First of all, we need to go back and understand where and how we got where we got. Misrepresentation by the pharmaceutical companies. There's 5 big pharmaceutical companies in our country. All 5 of them got together and decided to mislead the public. As a result, the state of Ohio, the most impacted state in our country, has filed a class action lawsuit against all 5 pharmaceutical companies for misrepresentation, misleading the public, and for deceptive business practices. Those are the 3 main components of the class action lawsuit. Now, there are 2 other states, Kansas and Kentucky, I believe, that both sued the pharmaceutical companies prior, and they both settled out of court with no blame being given to the pharmaceutical companies. So we need to get the education out there. We need to get people aware of the problem. All right. First, we need to let people know that what they've been told about pain pills is not true. It's very highly addictive and can cause death. Number 2, society problems. Ohio, the Deputy District Attorney of Ohio, Mike DeWine, has stated that the cost to their state alone, just the fallout in society because of the opioid crisis, they spent $95 million last year on placing children in foster homes that came from parents that were addicted to opiates. That's how many people in the state of Ohio are addicted to pain medication. Another $105 million went into taking care of babies that were born with neonatal deficiency syndrome. And those were all those children were born of mothers that were addicted to opiates. So just between those 2 issues, or 2 fallouts, if you will, the state of Ohio is spending $200 million a year. That does not include accidents, the personnel, the paramedics, the state cost on that side for all the overdoses. How about all the accidents that are attributed to that, driving, suicide? There's so many other tenets of this problem that we really need to look at, and it'll probably be a little while before we even know the magnitude of it. Number 3, legislation. Like anything else, we need to legislate. We need to put safeguards in place. But like every other crisis that America seems to be in, we have to have a serious falling out or a serious part of society that's affected before Congress or anybody is going to take up the cause, which is what happened. In 2017, finally, the Opioid Addiction Prevention Act of 2017, or Senate Bill 892, was presented to the House for vote earlier this year. Now, it was benched a couple times, but it's still on the docket, and I'm hoping before the end of this year someone's going to vote on it and put some kind of legislation in effect that's going to monitor how much pain medication can be put on to the doctors that they can distribute out to people. So I'm looking forward to that taking effect. And then finally, we're going to deal with the aftermath of this. Once legislation's in place and doctors can't prescribe it as much as they were in the past, we're going to be stuck with 20.2 million Americans that are chemically dependent on opioids. So what are we going to do? Well, I think we need to educate. We need to let people know how, where, and what they need to look forward to come off of this severely addictive drug. So we need to get it out into mainstream America. We need to have more people stand up and put their name behind this cause. And the unfortunate reality is that our morgues and our emergency room clinics are going to be the ones that bear the brunt of this addiction in the beginning. Once the prescriptions stop, the ERs and the morgues are going to overfill. So I don't know how we get around that, but it's something we definitely need to look forward to and plan for that. So I want to talk about Celebrate Recovery. I went to the summit this last September, and while I was there, Johnny Baker, who is the leader of Celebrate Recovery, he talked about the opioid crisis. And it was 5,000 people there. All the leaders from all over the country joined there. And he gave about a 15-minute speech on opioid addiction and what's happening. Some of those statistics I've included in this speech. But what he did at the end is he prayed. He prayed that our leaders in our country would hear our prayer, that somebody would come forward and do something to put a spotlight on this epidemic. It was so powerful. I had tears in my eyes. My wife had tears in her eyes. It's something that's passionate to us. And I'll tell you, as soon as we broke for lunch after Johnny Baker finished his prayer, I wasn't outside halfway to the lunch line, and my phone went off, and I opened it up, and I had a news flash that came across, an alert on my phone. And I opened it up, and I read it. And it weakened my knees. I got chills. My heart started pounding. This is what the alert said. President Trump has just declared the opioid crisis a national emergency. God heard our prayers. It didn't even take 15 minutes. Now there's a spotlight on it. But you know what? It's going to take more than just a spotlight. It's going to take a lot of people and a lot of footwork and a lot of action on people's part that have been through it and want to see other people not have to go through what we did. So, last but not least, I just want to say, God is good. In His timing and His plan, He has a purpose for everything. And, I'm fortunate enough to be a walking testimony. My wife is as well. And I know a lot of people in recovery that are walking testimonies. So God has a purpose in His plan. Washington's put a spotlight on it, but it's going to take more. It's going to take God, and it's going to take His soldiers on the ground to go out and get the message out there. So through all of it, I have faith. I know God is good, and I know we're going to get through it. So I just wanted to take this 10 minutes or 12 minutes to shed a little light on it and just explain where I came from and what's passionate to me. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, Dr. Dirk. I'm having some technical difficulties with our cameras, so I hope this recorded. I'll have it fixed by next week, and hopefully I'll have it all put together. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and have a blessed day.